And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Here we have a game called Lyssan, or Lyssan, or Lyssan, with one S backwards. But the Empire of Lyssan here is, this is a 2 to 4 player game, although it's really best with 4. But it's a 2 to 4 player game, and essentially it's kind of a war game because you're going after each other, but you're not moving forces and rolling dice. And it's almost kind of an abstract game where each of your pieces have different abilities that they may do. But there's a lot of card play in this game too, and there's some interesting mechanics. This is a game that does a lot of things that we've seen before, but also introduces things that haven't been in this genre. That's kind of nebulous. Let's take a look, and we'll be back. Here's the game board, which is, your typical game board with all these different areas on it. And you can see there's even some areas here that are connected. They're called islands, and you simply take those out in a 4-player game. Each player is going to have some pieces of their color. You can see here that you have some castles, some nice plastic castle pieces. And then you also have 3 of 4 different types of pieces. You have 3 nobles, you have 3 knights, you have 3 spies, and you have 3 priests. And at the beginning of the game, each player is going to take turns by they're going to get to put out 2 of their knights, they're going to get to put out 2 of their nobles, and they're going to get to put out 1 of their spies and 1 of their priests. Each of those goes with a castle. And this is important for several reasons, and I'll explain that in a minute. But you get a starting setup, and then your opponents will put up their starting setups too. And then the game starts taking place over spring, summer, fall, and winter. In spring, all you basically do is you're going to turn over one of these triumph cards. You have a certain number of triumph cards in the game depending on how many players. And it says the next player to destroy a castle claims this triumph. Or this one says the player who controls the most farmland provinces claims this triumph. Or this triumph is claimed by the player who controls the most knights on the board. And so each of these, one of these is turned up, and you cannot actually claim it that turn. You will claim it the following turn, but it gives you a turn to see what you're striving for. And as the game progresses, you're going to see more and more of these, and you always get to see one of them ahead of time. What players are going to be doing then is taking the main meat of the game after setup, and the main meat is basically the summer and the fall turns. At the beginning of the summer turn, there is a taxation phase, and you can see here that forest provinces give you influence, farmland gives you conscript, and mountain give you coins. Now, conscript and coins are basically 2 types of resources there. The conscripts are the yellows, and the coins are the ones right above them. Those cards give you those coins, and conscripts are going to be used to get more units that you will be able to hire on your turn, although your conscripts go away at the end of every turn. The influence cards, though, this is something different. You're going to be drawing influence cards into your hand. And each influence card shows you a picture. Let's hope this focuses here at some point. There we go. It shows you a picture of the action. And at the top corner, you see a number here. So if I want to play this influence card that says 2, I'll need to discard 2 other influence cards from my hand. So it's a very simple process. So the more cards you get, the more influence that you have. After everyone has received their taxes in the summer phase, in the autumn phase, it acts the same as the summer, but you don't get this nice taxation phase. You just get 2 influence cards. And you'll notice that the territories are split between the 3. This capital here is a wild, can give you influence, conscript, or coin. Then players will each take turns, one at a time going. You will ready all your people. Anyone who's been used from a previous turn, you will ready them and be able to use them. And then each unit can be moved and can do something. You can also play some cards. I'll talk about the cards first. You can play some cards. Some cards are surprise cards. It's a one-time effect. Other cards, though, are courtier cards, and these are cards that when you play them, they go in front of you, and it gives you a special ability. And some of them, like for example, the Van Fade is Vassal Courtier, gives you the Black Priests and Nobles, and you get one for free. So what that means is you'll find a pile of these guys. There's actually 12 of these that you can get. a bunch of mercenaries that are added to my pool now, and I can put one of them out in my castles, and I can hire more of them if I like to. And there's all sorts of them. You can see here, for example, the Understanding, and I can get the gold nobles and spies and put one of them out. And so that's a neat thing to have. And as long as that card is in front of you, those are yours. So then you can take, like I said, movement with each of your people. Knights have 2 actions that they can take. One of those actions can be moving to an adjacent province. Another action can be killing an opponent's noble or a knight. You can take them out. You can use both actions to take out an opponent's castle. So knights are powerful in that regard. Nobles, on the other hand, they can kill enemy nobles. They can also kill enemy knights and castles, but it takes both of their actions. They can also ready an exhausted priest. So they have that other special ability. Priests can move or give someone an influence from their hand to the province's controller and then draw another influence. They can shame a province. If you're at another opponent's province with your priest, where's my priest? Here he is. I can give that person a shame token. Okay, and we'll talk about shame in a second because it's not good. And spies can move, spies can kill priests or other spies, and if they're on the same tile as an opponent's castle, you can sacrifice a spy to steal one of their courtiers. Which means if you steal a courtier that has those mercenaries are now working for you, which is a cool sequence and something I like in the game. You can build also construction sites, and then you can upgrade those construction sites to new castles and put those out on the board. Now, you're going to be doing all that and moving your pieces and going back and forth, but at the end of a turn or at the beginning of the next turn, players always have to look at their boards, and they might have a few dead units on their board, or they might have shame on their board. And when you have dead units and shame on your board, you need to get rid of that. Now, there's a couple ways to get rid of it. You can discard one of your courtiers to get rid of it, which is not really your favorite way of getting rid of shame, but it is a way that you can do it. You can lose an influence card to do it, but the most popular way of taking shame or getting rid of shame is by taking a debt card. There are debt cards here to the side. And you can't have more than 3 debt cards, and debt cards are bad because they add to your hand size when we count to see who goes first. And I should mention that the game has some pretty nice tokens to show who goes first, second, third, fourth. But you can get rid of a debt card if you, well, this is really hard to read on the camera here. Each debt card has something different. This one here says repay at the cost of 3 influence. That's how I get rid of that debt card. Here I can pay 3 coins to get rid of this debt card. Here, this debt card, I can repay at no cost if I have 3 debts. So each debt card has a different cost, and you want to get rid of these debts as much as possible. And so that is pretty much the way the game works. The winner phase, all you're doing is determining a new player order, depending on whoever has the most influence to the least influence. And so that's how the game works. You're just trying to accomplish those triumphs, those victory conditions, and you're going to be moving your forces around and fighting back and forth and making treaties. In a 2-player game, you do have 2 forces that you control, one who is the master and one who is a puppet, so that you're playing a one-on-one battle. But this game really shines with 4 players going at it. So, what do I think of this game? Well, I'll start out by saying that I think it's a good, solid game. Here's the things that I really like about it. I like that each of the 4 pieces you have has a very distinct advantage and disadvantage in different ways. The knights are very powerful, they go out and kill things, but that's pretty much all they're good for. The nobles are less powerful than the knights, but, you know, sometimes your abilities will let them do different things. The spies, well, they go do spyish things, and the priests are good at defense, but can also give your opponent shame. The whole shame mechanic is an interesting one that I actually like quite a bit. I have not seen that in a game before, so that's one thing I very much enjoyed about the game, although you might not be enjoying it so much as you're being shamed. The mechanic with the cards, the influence cards, well, that's something that we've seen before, like in Race for the Galaxy, where you're using cards to pay for other cards. But that's a good mechanic, and in this game, I enjoy it. I very much like the different factions that you can have, where you get little mercenary factions that can come out, and that can be a very powerful advantage, but at the same time, you get those stolen from you, and, oh, I was using mercenaries to protect my capital? Bad idea. The pieces, the components are top notch. Well, with the exception of the board, it looks a little bit like someone vomited out some oranges and peas. But the board, I'm not so a big fan of that. But everything else looks great, and everything fits real nicely in a tray that comes inside the box. The game flows very smoothly. Having different victory conditions is good, especially since you can see them a turn ahead of what you're going to do. It is possible that a victory condition will come up that someone has, and there's really no chance for anybody to take that away from them. Hopefully, though, that's not a game winner. Disadvantages to the game. It doesn't work as well as a 3-player game just because you have that age-old, one guy might get caught in the middle of the other two. That doesn't have to happen in this game. It's less pronounced than it is in other games, but it's still there. 2-player game, it's okay, but the 4-player game is really where there's at, and it's neat. There's just so much going back and forth. I would have preferred maybe if they had a way to not have one person take their whole turn at a time, but turns aren't that long. There's only so much you can do, and turning pieces over to show that they've moved, that's an excellent idea. It works really well, and it's a good visual cue. So overall, I like the game. It's a good entry into this genre while offering some neat things like the influence cards. You're not, like I said at the beginning, you're not marching armies across the board and conquering different things, but at the same time, it's kind of like a chess game. In fact, last week or 2 weeks ago, I reviewed a game called Balance of Power. And Balance of Power had that same abstract feel, but didn't work. This one has the abstract feel and does work because everything's so thematic, especially the cards. Wow, when you play a card and it says this is what's happening at the top of the card, it makes sense. The interrogation, you do this. Denouncing the king or whatever. I really enjoyed that with good artwork and such. So check this one out. It might surprise you. Listen, or Lyssan, or Lyssan.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.